This is a new podcast style um, event or action that we're going to be trying to take, basically called Talkville, or the Town of Orphaned Characters, where we sit around and roll up the most ridiculous random characters we can, explain what they are, and then bring them to life for you. I'm joined with John, also known as Jonicus on Twitch. It's great to have you on here.
Thank you. I'm super glad to be here.
Um, so, could you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do, um,
Like,
what kind of games you do?
what kind did you want to know about okay, we're not going to get too personal, I guess, but
No, no, no. I don't want to know your shoe size or anything like that. But
my name's John. I do a lot of gaming. I play video games and tabletop games. Um, the let's see, with D&D, I'm currently running a character named Therum Hjalder. He's a dwarven cleric of the Grave Domain, and he he's like kind of a diva.
a
The
diva.
original, so yeah, the idea was originally that he would be like he didn't like people, and he would kind of like walked around with a cloud over his head all the time. He was like Eeyore.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
try to come up with like a sort of funny character concepts at first and flesh them out over time. And
Hmm.
and I usually will pick like celebrities or characters and as
Hmm.
inspiration and kind of mush them together. So Therum is a combination of like Alan Rickman and Starfire, not Starfire, uh, what's it, Raven from Teen Titans,
Oh
and
goodness.
like also the Monarch. Really, the first, really, I guess the Monarch is the biggest. Um, and so he has a voice, which I we do the voices when we role play. I'm not sure, but he sounds like this. I am Theron Haldar, and he wears
Yeah, that's great.
mascara and um, black nail polish, and when he casts, we really don't pay close attention to components when we cast spells, but I
Hmm.
feel like that's a great way to add some flavor to your character. And
Oh
so
yeah,
the
yeah, of
verbal
course it is.
components to his spells are always emo song lyrics. So he'll
So he's your inner edge lord,
yeah,
apparently.
he's an edge lord. That's a great way of putting it. So, and he started as a cleric, and to like really compress all of it down into a few sentences, his whole story arc was he had a book. There was, I think, like a bond you could pick that said you had like a demon, a little imp that
Hmm.
sat on your shoulder and gave you advice. This was some sort of like pr- character prompt thing that I found, and
Yeah.
he had the imp, and so the idea was that the imp lived in a children's storybook and would come out and torture him, and the
Yeah.
DM
Yeah.
basically interpreted that as like he's the kind of like Q.
Yeah.
So you have this very like um, edge lord character who he's kind of a diva, and he's being
Yeah.
constantly tormented by Q. Um, and that was the beginning of Therum, and he's come a long way since then. He's had many
All right.
adventures.
That
That's my
sounds
main
wonderful.
character. I could go on. I've rolled a lot of like one shot characters, which I think is probably a lot more relevant to the podcast.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, like, what's your experience with other systems and things like that are like branching out? Not necessarily um, what all that you've done, but a little background. Like, I've done personally Scion, a little bit of Werewolf. I've done D&D, Pathfinder, things like that.
I did
So
roll
I have
one
a,
character in Werewolf, although I don't remember
yeah.
what it was. It
So
was years ago.
So you've had a good deal of rolling up, messing with characters and character creation, and just free flowing the ideas.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. One of my other favorite ones was a character. I can't find his sheet now for some reason, but his name was. uh, Maggot. I forget his first name, but he was like a cheese hoarder and Cheese Monger was his
Yeah.
title. The whole campaign was really cool. It was basically a side story set in the same world as Theron's world.
Hmm. Oh yeah, those are
Um,
always the best when characters
yeah,
can kind of like overlap with their
yeah, and we ended up
viewpoint.
visiting that city, this town later as our main characters, and it was hilarious. The premise of this was there was a cooking competition, so all the characters were just like little level one bakers and culinarians and like just crafts people that lived in this town, and then it was a crafting competition, and he was the cheesemonger, and he talked like this, and he would just say the most vulgar thing possible at the moment, and there was a whole speech where he talked about um, his bad morning and the horrible bout of diarrhea that he
No.
had, and it just it just it was great. It was good. It was comedy
Yeah,
gold.
I mean, oh, those are the best times, right? Like when your character just kind of flows out and goes off on like these side tangents. When me
Hmm.
and Chenga in Ohio were playing a weird mashup of Exalted and D&D, we had an entire like 6 hour campaign session where we just cooked a questing beast for uh, Gordon Ramsay's.
Oh,
Uh,
that's amazing. I love that.
and like because we had a person in our group who was like a really foodsy person, and they got into it, and we had a cooking battle where we had to deflect the spells from the other team who was trying to sabotage our food, and those kind of things are just absurdly fun. And you get those with, I feel like a lot of people try to make not min max characters, but they want effective characters, and a lot of people view D&D as a, I'm gonna go into combat, and
Yeah,
that's
they
where
get
you get.
really invested in the combat and like the stats and like the
Hmm.
system, which is cool, and I think that stuff is fun. But
Yeah,
yeah, I very much like you don't need any of that to really
no.
play tabletop. In college, there's the famous verbal D&D that we used to play in the car. Do you remember that? Were you
Oh,
part of
the
that?
verbal D&D. Yeah, I was part of that, man. We used to do that coming back from cons and things like
Yeah,
that. That was
yeah.
some of the best, you know.
The My favorite was the Infinity Spigot, and they found a spigot that I was driving, and so I was like the DM is the driver,
Yeah,
so everyone
to
else
keep them
plays.
awake. Yeah.
Yeah. And so they found this spigot, and I was like, it's a spigot, and whatever you put it on and turn it on, whatever's inside it comes out. And so I had to come up with like creative things that they'd like put it on a rock and water would come out somehow, or they put it on a tree and sap would come out. And
Oh wow.
they left it on in a mountain inside like the troll mountain. And so I was like,
Oh,
well, thousands of years from now, this mountain's going to collapse into a sinkhole because you left a faucet on. Because it's the infinity spigot. It just,
yeah.
I,
Continues to go and go and go. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Tamsin's saying in the background that she remembers that. I think if you
Oh
put it on
yeah.
a
So,
person, all their blood would come out.
or maybe the blood marrow. Who knows? It depends on where you stab them, right? I guess
Yeah,
like if you hit the bladder, like that's just unfortunate for you. Um,
right. And I would say it wouldn't actually pull out it would magically conjure whatever should come out of that thing, not
yeah.
actually pulling the world's
What's in
water
it?
resources into, yeah, because a rock doesn't have water in it. But
Yeah, yeah.
what
It
comes out of
could.
rocks, it could, yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
theoretically.
Unfortunately, now if you happen to hit some kind of metamorphic rock that used to be magma, you done fucked up.
Oh yeah. Hot lava. Oh,
Oh, yeah.
put
So,
that in your bag of holding.
oh no. Actually, in this, my current group has a very bad habit of rolling up one shots to do intermediary because we have like a group of 8 players, and getting all of us together is very difficult.
Hmm.
So we have to continuously roll up one shots, and these one shots take anywhere from 3 sessions to an entire campaign length to
Oh yeah.
finish.
Yeah, well, isn't
And
it
then we go
cool? I
back.
mean, I think it's kind of cool if you roll up one shot characters only intending to play them one time, and then you end up playing them like perpetually forever. That's pretty neat.
Yeah, but then you get groups like mine who are very invested in the characters, and they are very good role players. They really get into the characters, into the backstories, into the ideas, and then they want to finish and continue like a character arc for these characters
Hmm.
when we've already got like our little baby ones, like the ones that we really like, sitting on a shelf somewhere in
Oh
like
yeah,
limbo.
yeah. Don't do that. You don't need a you know you can always create a backstory for a character like when you actually decide to play it again. If it's just a one
Yeah.
shot, you don't need a back. You don't need the and you don't need the tragic death of their parents. You just I
No,
have
no.
another character sheet here. You know the name of this character? It's
Mm,
Rando.
yeah.
His name is
I
Rando.
I always keep a blank character sheet available. In our current little one shot, me and Changa, um, she rolled up like a ranger with what -3 into dexterity or something like that.
Hmm.
Or -2. It was like she's got like an 8, a 6 or an 8. She's blind Al from Deadpool, and she just is done with everybody's crap. And I rolled up like a lawful evil paladin,
Oh no. Oh.
and and he just like he's done with everybody's crap too, but he like takes care of this little blind ranger and is like his her partner. And he does all kinds of really stupid stuff because I'm a
Hmm.
very I wouldn't say eccentric, but off the wall player. Like I come up with like, okay, I'm gonna spider climb upside down and go this way. Um, and me and some another friend in my group just break the DM constantly with our
Hmm.
antics, especially if we're playing one of our like if there's a halfling or a gnome in the group, it's probably one of us, and we're probably doing really stupid things and throwing the entire campaign out the window. Um,
Yeah, that's kind of how Tamsin's characters operate. Is they just punch things until they explode and um can certainly derail stuff. I've derailed things before. Not on purpose, but
mhm.
that should
I
probably
think
be a
it's
whole nother topic for a different episode. Like when was
yeah, just the ways
going
that
off
we've
the
thrown
rails?
off. Yeah. Oh, just make a character just for that. We'll figure that one out. We'll do
Yeah.
one of that.
Yeah.
So we've been kind of rambling about this thing, but it's really nice just to talk shop with like how your characters behave, what it is to
Hmm.
make the character come alive more so than just the numbers, because that's the big thing with this kind of random building is we are going to be rolling dice. We're going to be taking what we get and putting it together and trying to make a functional character, one that would be fun to play, but also one that may not be something that you immediately wanted to play. Like, you know, oh, I rolled up these stats and, I really wanted to have 16 in all of my stats and be able to do this in this situation. It's like,
Hmm.
let
Yeah,
me
I'm
grow.
I'm not the guy that sits around and like rolls dice just to like make
Mhm.
a character.
Yeah.
I can see how that'd be fun if you're just killing time. You're like, here's some dice. Oh, those stats are cool. I get that. I
Hmm.
usually wait until I have some idea of what the campaign is going to be
Hmm.
before I
Yeah.
bother to roll dice. And so I start
Yeah.
in my head with like the class and the character race probably already picked out before I roll dice.
Yeah. I mean, and that's normally a good way to do it, especially because you don't want to like roll up, a Yanti by accident and like
Hmm.
be in a group of lawful good people and trying to play like
Right.
this. And that's another thing. As we go through here, and it's a good segue um, to the parameters of what it is that we're going to be kind of doing here in Talkville and for these characters and things like that. Um, we're making these character concepts to rest, stay here, be adopted later by people who listen to the podcast, ourselves.
Hmm.
Um, and a big thing that I don't do um, is prescribe the races as innately evil or good or neutral.
Oh yeah.
Uh, it's more like um, the good is utilitarian, like they try to do the best for
Hmm.
everybody, like the flag waving white knight person who's like, I'm gonna save everybody, and you're like, oh bless your heart, but you're not, but if even trying. um
Oh, bless your heart.
yeah. And then neutrals are the bless your heart people, are the people who are like,
Hmm.
well, I'm going to do some bad things. I'm going to try to do good, more good than bad, but I'm going to judge it by myself. And then evil is more the selfish. I need things for me. This is what I want to do. I don't care about your perspective when I build up characters, because I know that there are some classes and some um, races that are generally prescribed as evil, and that basically all evil is just they don't care about their culture or care about other cultures and the
Mm,
safety of others. It's all about themselves. So it's more
right.
like, a varying degree of that. What is your perspective on like the alignment charts or the alignments?
Alignment is such a big, um, like concern. I mean, it depends on the group you're playing with, because some people take alignment very seriously to a point where they
Hmm.
say like, well, what you're saying right now is against your character's alignment, right? You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like my character wouldn't, and that's fine. You know, go into it
Hmm.
with those expectations, though. Um,
Yeah.
I think alignment is should be fluid, and that like your
Hmm.
character can be neutral, but like vacillating towards good, or vacillating towards chaotic something,
Hmm.
chaotic evil, chaotic good in the moment, right? And you have
Yeah.
maybe like a base alignment, and then depending on the circumstances, your alignment could flip temporarily, or your alignment
Yeah.
could,
Yeah.
or not. Theorem is true neutral.
Yeah.
Um, it doesn't really come up often when we're playing what people's alignments are, but
Yeah.
I've been in situations where I created a paladin and I had to babysit two thieves. And there was a
Always pickpocketed
yeah,
everybody.
group. Yeah. My wife was playing a thief and her friend was playing a thief, and in that particular group, alignment was kind of being enforced, and so my paladin character, who for some reason hired these thieves for this task, um,
And regretted it every step of
and
the way.
regretted it every step of the way because he had to sit up every night, and like he and the hunter had to take turns watching the thieves and keeping the thieves from stealing from each other, because they would steal from each other. They'd be like scraping, like you'd get put in a dungeon and they'd be scraping, I don't know, gold off the walls. I think that actually happened. Is that I rage quit that group for other reasons and I don't want to talk about it, but
Yeah, no, no, don't worry about that.
but
But
it
yeah,
was
so
hard to play a paladin. It ended up working out pretty cool because through the storyline, um, and this is something I thought was really well done on the DM's part. Through the storyline, it turned out that his basically like the Pope of his faith,
hmm,
right? This is not like
yeah,
very, I don't know, very plugged into any particular D&D setting, but the Pope of his faith
yeah.
um, was actually like a lich.
Oh
So
wow.
what
Okay.
happens to a paladin's psyche when they find that out?
Yeah,
Um,
that's.
he
Whew.
he had a crisis of faith, and then he became a paladin of freedom instead,
Hmm.
which I thought
Yeah,
was very cool. That was
paladins are
it was
definitely one
something
of the
neat.
paladins and clerics are definitely some of the characters who rely the most on the alignment chart.
Yeah.
And it's good to have to know what your base kind of alignment, like it says like humans are always neutral or whatever, or tend to
Hmm.
always be neutral, and like there are certain things that are lawful good,
Hmm.
um, and you can see that in people all the time, and but they still make mistakes. They still are greedy. They still have flaws. So
And those rules are
having
meant
a
to be bent and sometimes broken just for the
yeah,
sake of narrative convenience
well,
or
of
what
course, yeah,
have you.
yeah, yeah. So I'm glad we're kind of on the same page of when we start talking about alignments of our characters and the races. Orcs aren't necessarily always evil. Drow
Oh man,
aren't always evil.
good orcs are great. Are great. I've met some good orcs in my travel.
Yeah.
There's the one with a
I mean,
guitar. He was pretty rad. Yeah.
so, yeah, so like that's a big argument that a lot of people like to bend that, and it's good to um talk about how that is going to be kind of used in our town. Just because somebody is necessarily evil doesn't mean that they are going out and like killing people on an altar. They might
Right.
just be jacking up supplies of essential medical things, you know?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Or maybe they're killing people and they're perceived as evil by the townspeople they're killing, but they have a good reason or a reason that's good enough for them to be.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
what you call complexity.
Oh my goodness, character death.
Yeah.
Depth. Why? No. Um, yeah, so that's what we kind of do with this. And continue on to that idea of character depth and limitations on the character designs. Um, I know I have personal rules for when I DM about rolling dice, and I prefer to do the 4d6 dice for ability scores. And I tend to give a free reroll of a 1
Hmm.
if your total ability score is below 10. So if it's 10 or above, you don't get the free reroll. You're just a base average
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, and it is bad to say this, and we've already talked about how, it shouldn't matter about the ability score. But if you have a -2 intelligence and you happen to run into a mind flayer, your character's dead. And that's
Yeah.
so,
It
and we're supposed to
happens.
be heroes, and you're
Right.
supposed to be a hero, right? Yeah, yeah. So you should have at least average. I perceive that you should have a decent average score, but I don't know. I know a lot of people like to do well, like a 20-sided die or do the standard array, which are it's fine for you.
Hmm.
But what's your take on how you generate your characters?
Um,
What's your
I'll
preferred
go with
method?
whatever the DM wants. I'm fine with point assignment, where you have like a limited number of points and you just kind of put them where you need them,
Hmm.
and that prevents you from being able to just have all your stats maxed out. The last character I did, it was just straight rolls though, just the
Yeah.
D6 method like yours, and that's
Okay.
fine with me. Like I think that as long as the rolls aren't terrible, maybe start over if they're totally terrible, and just
Yeah.
throw that character in the trash and be like, nope, not that guy. But the thing
Um,
is, like, there's nothing wrong with having a bad stat somewhere. It
yeah.
gives your character some kind of variance. And I think about it this way too, like a group of adventurers. It's like any think about any cast of any television show. If
Hmm.
all of those characters were good at everything, wouldn't that be like a super boring show?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Hmm.
You want some characters that are good at some things and bad at other things. And I think maybe as a group talk about what your characters are good at, and
Yeah.
you know.
I think it's also fun. It also depends on the size of your group too, right? So the
Yeah.
average D&D party is between like 3 and 5 players with a DM running the show.
Hmm.
Um, and in which case, there's a lot more emphasis on everybody being able to pull their own weight. If your
Yeah.
group is large, like mine, which is like 8 people, 8 other
Hmm.
players, and everybody is trying to be an edgelord, dramatic
Right.
uh,
Yeah.
person, it takes a while to do the screen time, and you got to have those flaws so that like my in one of the past sessions, I had a monk, an air genasi, and I was supposed to be like this Spider-Man. Um, like it was in my head, he was a way of the shadow. He was gonna like float and be ninja cool and whatnot like that. And he was like a good character, and he was trying his best. And you wouldn't believe some of the dexterity saving throws that I failed.
Oh, that's never good. I
like
hate when that happens.
like the one thing he's supposed to be good at is wisdom and dexterity. that like his strength was crap. I couldn't kick in doors. I couldn't lift things. I wasn't charismatic. I acted like it, but I wasn't. So like those weren't my strong suits.
Hmm.
And so like I had my flaws. My flaws never took in. It was my strengths that always failed me. So I think this is primarily a numbers game, a dice game, and no matter how good your stats are, you're gonna fail
You're gonna fail some
occasionally.
rolls. Yeah, you're gonna
Yeah,
fudge a
yeah,
save at some point. It happens.
yeah, yeah. So now that we've gotten some of the our definitions of how we define our characters, how we set up our parameters for it, go continue on to the show. Because honestly, we'll probably switch this up at some point. We'll
Hmm.
probably do point buy at some point, like randomly flip a coin for each one and see what we get, and see how that goes out, and try different things like that. Um,
Let me ask you this,
yeah,
just because I'm curious now. When you're rolling stats, do you say
yeah.
this is my strength roll and roll six the d6
Sometimes
or yeah,
Sometimes I do. It depends. If I'm really wanting just to make a random character, I'm making like I'm like, oh God, my character's gonna die. I
yeah.
don't have a backup character right now. I need to make something. I just like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, here we go. What I got, and go with it that way. If I'm playing around with an idea,
Uh-huh.
um, that I kind of want to try out, or like,
Yeah.
oh okay, I kind of feel like playing like a range character, kind of archery, maybe a crossbow, something like that. So I'm gonna definitely need a little bit higher dex. I'll roll all the numbers and then just assign them to where I want them to go.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but but for true random characters, when I'm just feeling, you know, take what I get and go with it,
Hmm.
I'll just roll it and whatever I get. So I typically what I do is I roll up the abilities first.
Oh,
Well,
okay.
I roll up like the race and then I roll up the abilities because my thought process is as a level one adventurer is this person's probably been doing something training to get to that point. So you get your character, your race, and you get your abilities because that's what the body is and who they are at the moment. And then you look at, okay, they have these stats now. What can I make from this? And you find yourself a class. um, yeah.
That sounds like a lot of fun actually. Like what class would this jumble of weird stats actually be?
Hmm.
Oh,
So let's put this into practice here. Um, I have up the character builder for D&D Beyond.
okay.
Um, there is 26 possible um, races at my last counting, with a bunch of sub race variants and things like that that get into it. Because elves, oh Lord, elves, man, stop procreating. You have seven. You have seven like sub races. Please just stop. You
Yeah.
have enough.
That's silly. Quit that.
you
Quit that.
you and the tieflings, like the tieflings have an excuse. They have the two base variant races, and then they had the 10 like beholden um people who like spawn from different types of devils um and lineages. So which is a nice touch. I like having that. It plays around with those kind of things. So
Hmm.
here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna start by rolling. And it's very difficult to do a random number generator for the races. But I think what we could do is we can do either one of us rolls a d20. I think I'll let you do this, the honors of rolling a d20, and then
Oh
I will
yeah.
roll um, a d6.
Okay.
And if you roll a 1, and then it's going to be the first um, race.
Hmm.
And then if you roll anything above a 1, I will roll, and we'll go
We'll
off
add
of
those
that.
two together. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let me pick a good dice here.
Okay. Oh, do you have a special set of player killer dice? Oh, I hate those.
I have some dice that have failed me in the past. This blue one is
Yeah.
is just garbage. I don't know why, but I wanted to use my black one. Yeah.
Okay.
Also, gonna roll it across the table here and not. Well, I've got like a magic playmat set out. I'm gonna roll it
Yeah.
across that and not in a box because that's
Mhm.
fail. I've had some really bad dice rolls by dropping them in a box.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Really bad.
Boxes in
Yeah. Okay, let's roll it. 7.
7. Okay. And I got a 5. So we're looking at 12. 1, 2, 3, 4. Goblin.
Oh, I love it.
Oh, this is kind of turned out great so far. Okay.
Oh,
Now,
I like a goblin mayor. It's
mm, mm, yep, yep. The I'm already envisioning that he decided to come in and he was just tired of being bullied and he set up a place to farm. Okay, so now he's just tired of being bullied by those orcs at the Okay, so let's do the each roll goes straight into a stat. We don't.
okay.
So 46, you'll get to roll up the first one, which is strength.
Okay. 4d6. Gotta the listeners gotta hear that.
Oh
That
yeah,
dice
they gotta
clack.
have the jingle.
All
Oh yeah.
right. Oh, it hit the floor.
Oh, it's
Let's
dead
re
to us. It's gone.
Yeah, let's re-roll that one. Ah, technical diff. You want me to re-roll the other three or just leave it?
I don't know. Roll the last one. Like
Okay,
it's
roll
fine.
last one. All right, so that is 11.
An 11 in strength. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
my turn. I don't know if you can hear the jingle on mine because my headset
Oh, I hear
doesn't.
it. Sounds great.
Oh, oh yeah.
That
Oh,
jingle.
6 in the morning. Get that jingle going. Uh, oh, this is not looking good, fam. We got two twos, a 4, and a 3. So it's looking like it's gonna be 9 in Dex. But
Oh,
luckily, he has a racial bonus, so it's up to an 11.
okay.
What do you get? What are you gonna give us for Constitution? How buff is this guy gonna
Constitution.
be?
Oh man, 2 4s and 2 1s. So that is 10,
9?
10,
Oh,
8
so
plus
in I don't know. So this is something we didn't clarify. And I do normally do roll 4, take the best 3.
2.
Do you roll all
Oh,
4 and take all of them?
I was just adding them all.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, my bad. Um,
It's okay.
we can
Roll it
make it
again.
9. Okay.
Roll it again. We gotta get our parameters set.
Um, in that case, then it's still a 10.
It's okay.
6 a
So
3 and a 1 and 2 1s.
awesome. So right now he's looking pretty. He's a little bit slow for a goblin,
Mm,
but he's kind of buff, probably
mm.
very hardy, very muscular. Let's see how smart he is. Okay. A 6, a 5, a 1, and a 2. So, 13. No wonder he left the cave. He he knew better.
Mhm. He's coming out super average. He's
Yeah.
averaged goblin.
I think he's above average for goblins. Honestly, I'm gonna pull up.
Hmm.
Go ahead and roll up his wisdom. I'm gonna pull up the monsters and check what the average goblin kind of
Yeah.
has.
Already dropped another dice on the floor, and that one I'm not gonna try and get. I'll just use a different one. All right, so here's the thing. What if he ends up being just wise, like the wisest? I guess we'll
Wow.
speculate when we get there, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, when
I
we get
hope
there,
so, though. I'm really
yeah,
hoping.
come on, let's get this.
Um, a 5, a 4, and a 2 and a 2. So that makes it
Ooh, an 11.
an 11.
Yeah, okay. And his charisma. How well can he get his stuff done? Ooh, fam, this ain't good. This ain't good at all. 5, 3, 1, and 1. He's got a 9.
Mm.
He's not a
You
very
know,
good leader.
but like we said, sometimes you just end up with a 9, and that's okay.
Yeah. So, for reference, the typical goblin, as I mean from the Player's Handbook and the Monster Manual, has a strength of 8, 14 Dex, 10 Constitution, 10 Intelligence, 8 Wisdom, and an 8 in Charisma. So he's actually kind of above average
Hmm.
as far as goblins go. So that's pretty cool. Um, I kind of see him being as like the nerdy goblin. He was like always like stacking rocks and building things and tinkering and being picked on by like the other goblins. Um, and he just got fed up with it, you know?
Screw you guys! I'm gonna make my own town. It's gonna be
Yeah,
called Talkville.
I'm gonna make my own town. It's gonna have blackjack and hookers. You know
That's
what?
right.
Forget the town. Okay, so now we have to choose his class. What is he going to be? And we can roll a d12, or we can, because there are exactly 12 classes, because we are not using the Blood Hunter,
Hmm.
which is a critical role setup. We're just using the base classes.
Hmm.
Um, so we can do a d12, or we can do like we each roll a d6 or something like that. I think a d12 is better. Let's each roll a d12, and we'll figure out which class we
Bef-
like the best in our
before
rolls.
we roll,
Yes,
let's
yes.
why don't we talk a little bit about like what we think just based on his stats, what he should be, just so we can
Oh
kind of have the
yeah.
best of both worlds here. Because right, what's his
Okay,
highest
okay.
stat?
Intelligence. So probably a
Intelligence.
wizard.
Yeah, and his
He
charisma is low. So
yeah.
how would a wizard mayor with low charisma even function? Right, like
Hmm. Yeah.
I mean,
So
I think he's like an evil mastermind almost,
yeah, kind of
right?
like he's
Maybe not evil, but very conniving.
so think of like oh from Phineas and Ferb, the evil scientist from there, who for the best of his abilities and how smart he was, always messed up and couldn't like he always felt like he didn't have a friend and things like that because he wasn't very perceptive. I think I think this goblin doesn't play well with others because he's so like been picked on for so much that he doesn't like talk with people very well. He doesn't communicate
Right.
well. That's it. That's his weakness in charisma. It's like he just doesn't
Yeah.
communicate well.
Yeah. He's
That's
awkward. He's super
yeah, yeah,
awkward.
yeah. Also, he should be. I feel like he should also be unusually handsome by other races' standards.
A sexy
But for
goblin.
but yeah, yeah. But
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 he's
for
but
like
he's unattractive as a goblin. Like two other
but
goblins.
as a goblin and a goblinoid, he's very unattractive. He's the ugliest thing ever.
They're like, oh,
But
your skin is so baby smooth. Get away from
yeah,
me.
yeah, exactly. Like he's like, I wish I had wrinkles and warts, and like
Instead,
he's
he's
got
got
like
like a birthmark and full lips.
yeah, yes, exactly. Um,
Oh
which
no.
really also it doesn't work well for the other races either because nobody's very comfortable with being around an attractive goblin.
Hmm.
Like they don't know how to deal with this. It's like, did something happen to you? You're a wizard. Did you do like some spell on yourself? He's like, no, man, I was just born this way. Why you gotta pick on me?
Oh, and this whole charisma thing,
Yeah.
it just hit me. We kind of just assumed this character's gender, right?
Oh yeah, it could be a female.
Could be a
We should
female goblin.
it.
Bad on
Okay,
us,
so
man. But
oh
we have an
shoot.
opportunity to fix it now, right?
Well, honestly, a lot of times when I roll up a character, I don't particularly choose a gender until after I've gotten the
Mhm.
entire concept, and I'm just like,
Oh,
okay,
okay. Are we gonna leave
do I
that
want it to
for
be?
the end then?
Yeah, and also like
Okay.
we could roll. We could do oh goodness, if we're gonna do that, man, we could do a lot. We'd have to roll a d6.
Uh-huh.
It could be
Wait, goblins have more than one gender or more than two genders?
well, I don't think they have gender studies. I don't think
Uh-huh.
they
Oh, I see. Yeah, yeah,
realize
yeah.
the gender roles, but like maybe because of how pretty he is, or how
Oh,
handsome she is, they dress in a certain way to be perceived as like either a female goblin or a male goblin, and most
I'm
people
down
can't
with
even
that. I'm
tell the
down with
difference.
that.
So we'll save the D6 roll for the reveal at the very end on whether or
Okay.
not.
Okay.
um, so our goblin is very intelligent for a goblin, quite wise for a goblin also, but not attracted by those standards at all.
Hmm.
Actually, I think our goblin is quite strong for a goblin also. So yeah, an 11 over like an 8. Um, so the kind of a like buff goblin too. So not only are they like pretty in their face and like have a nice goblin structure, facial structure,
Yeah.
and bones, and like the hair that L'Oreal would kill for, um, but like they like flex and you can like, man, that's a jacked goblin. Like,
We have rolled like the I don't know, the
the
goblin.
anti-goblin.
The
Yeah.
Yeah, the anti goblin. Just a beautiful buff, intelligent individual. I'm loving it so far.
Yes, this is
It's
this is
not beautiful by goblin standards.
yeah.
Would that mean they would
Oh
get
man.
disadvantage for charisma checks versus goblins and advantage for charisma checks against like non other races? What would the DM
So
say?
I would say if it was in my campaign, yes, that would be a like a flavor addition to the character.
Mm,
Something that is just innately built into it. I don't like maybe they might have like sometimes when it negates it, like, but yeah, I think for the most part, like in social situations, that would be a case that I would allow um the advantages, or like, or especially when interacting with people on the first time, because initially when as a goblin and you interact with a non-goblin race, like a guardsman or something like that, what's the first thing they're gonna do? They're gonna try to stab you because they're racist.
hmm.
And but you would have like this advantage of like, okay, they go to stab you and they stop and they like, man, that's a pretty goblin. And
Temporarily dazzled by beauty.
yeah, and then like they become unsure and they stop. So like it helps deflect, I would say.
Mm,
Um, so that being the case, with a high intelligence, a decent wisdom, and a decent strength, um, we could go down a couple of different routes um, as far as classes that we would hope to get. Because again, the dice may very well say that this paladin is now a monk,
yeah, it's true.
or
Yeah.
you know, so I think like druid is a good one.
Hmm.
Wizard definitely. Um,
Maybe a certain
fighter
type of warlock,
maybe,
right?
yeah. Uh, a warlock that doesn't cast spells
Yeah, more like
that
the
have
sword warlock.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know.
Or like, oh, he made a pact and like he's more of a warlock that would like to, um, instead of like casting spells that have a chance to fail or something like that based on his save, because he gets a -1 to that,
Hmm.
um, or his check. Maybe a warlock that does like buffs or something like that, like
Yeah.
and just cast Eldritch Blast all the time.
Right. Right.
That, the stereotypical Eldritch Blast, Eldritch Blast. Warlock. Um, okay, so I think for the class, we both roll a d12 and we see
Okay.
which two classes we get. Um,
Let's pick out a good D12. Okay.
yeah.
Should I go first? We go on at the same
Yeah,
time.
you, yeah, one, two, three. Wonderful.
I got a
Okay,
4.
I got a one, which is barbarian, and
Okay.
you got a four, which is
Hmm.
druid.
Okay. I think we should probably go with druid.
I think
Just
so
based on
too.
a conversation that we just had.
I think druid is the way that we're gonna go on this. We're gonna add it into druid. Um, roll me 2d8 if you would. Here,
Okay.
I'll roll the eight and you roll the eight, and
All
that's
right.
what our skills are gonna be.
Okay. I rolled a 5.
I got a one, so animal handling and nature. Okay, this
Yeah,
seems
that
pretty.
that that seems that tracks for a druid,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now the better question is, do we want to stick with this character who will be our central first orphaned character? I I I don't I don't think I should phrase it that way. That seems kind of insensitive to the goblin, but but it tracks.
Is
Should we
this a
have
mayor or is this a citizen of
ah,
Talkville?
or like a founder, like the founder
Right.
of the
Right.
town? Um, do we want to see if potentially they have more levels? Like, because a lot of things too in D&D that I found is a lot of campaigns start at level one and you end by like level five and you get a new character, or your group is done, or
Hmm.
life changes, depending on how fast your group is. Occasionally, we'll make uh, characters at like level five so you can see all the cool things that you could have gotten if you had been playing for a couple years.
Right.
um, so the better question is do we want to roll, there's my accent coming back. Do we want to roll like a D100 and say over an 80, like a 20% chance that he's got an additional level? Um,
Sure.
okay. So I'll let you have the honors of that one.
Okay. So just you want me to do percentile dice?
Percentile dice. Let's
I
say
don't have a
anything.
D100 sitting here.
Oh, you have a D100?
I said I don't have a D100, but
Oh,
I've got
oh,
a
I was
I've got
I was like,
the
yeah,
percentile dice, the two
percent,
10-sided dice.
yeah, yeah. Let's do that. Let's do the percentile
Okay.
and say anything above 80 means that he's
Okay.
got another level, or she's got
All
another
right.
level.
Goblin, this is your chance. This is your one shot.
Don't
Uh,
don't throw away your shot.
and so I rolled a
Ought.
yep, and an 8. So
Oh,
I
they
don't
threw
think
away the
that
shot.
we yeah,
No,
we did
I
not.
think they threw away the shot.
Depends on if you how you interpret ought. Do you interpret ought as 100 or do you interpret it as 0? And we're interpreting it
I
as 0 in this case, right?
it ought is zero unless you get another zero, and then in
Mm,
which
mm,
case it's 100.
right.
Yep. Um, so oh goodness, we can prepare one spell a day.
What is our one
But
spell?
and that's for the player to choose because druids can
Ah, I
reset
see.
their spells each day, but they cannot reset cantrips, and we get to choose two of them. So one, two, three, four. Holy crap! I've never noticed that druids have the capacity to have 18 different cantrips. That is ridiculous. Like,
There are some classes that have many, many spells.
and
Um,
it's not even spells. It's just cantrips.
right.
Like, like control flame to like frostbite to druidcraft to infestation. Like, they have a huge range of cantrips that you can have. Okay, so I think on this case we both roll a d20 and we will find the numbers, and that will be our cantrips.
Okay.
17
11.
foil. If I'm counting right, and I can't say that I am because I only had to take statistics in college,
Hmm.
which one, two, three, four.
I had to take trig and physics, and I don't want to talk about it. It was
Yep.
not my best, my favorite class.
So our two cantrips are poison spray and thorn whip.
Okay.
So it looks like this was a a goblin who like was trying to be like the shaman of his tribe, of his group, but was like picked on and like ridiculed and ostracized. Um,
Mm.
so he had to have a couple like cantrips at hand to help protect himself. I think that's what it's
Oh
looking
yeah,
like.
definitely. And then of course once he goes out on his own and
Yeah, yeah,
leaves, then he's got to fend for himself too. So
very
it
much so,
makes
very
sense to
much so.
have those spells. Um,
Okay, and now as far as backgrounds go, there's a lot of backgrounds. Um, just roll me a d20 and we'll go with whatever it is. That's, I mean, we can choose it. I mean, we've already kind of come up with it, like as a hermit or a hunted one. You know,
19.
19. Outlander. That that is perfect. Like he
That
grew up
works.
in the
Yeah.
wild, far from civilizations, that come from towns and technologies. You know, he's been wandering. Like he's used to being in the wild. He's a nomad and explorer.
Hmm.
Um,
And he has left his previous home behind, and
uh-huh.
now
And
he on his own.
and he plays the Schwam as his tool
What even
proficiency.
is that? What even is that?
I That's a good question. Oh, it's like a flute. It's a conical bore double reed woodwind instrument from
Oh man,
Europe.
man.
Like so he goes
So
around it, so he can play like this weird flute, almost it
like a
almost looks
Pied
like a
Piper,
clarinet. Yeah. I mean,
dude's just
he might not be great at it, but he can, you know.
yeah.
Um,
Maybe he Pied Pipers with the flute and summons whips. You know what I mean?
possibly. And now here's a choice. We get to choose a language for our little goblin. Um, and that is a huge list. I
Oh my
think
word!
though, like well over 20. So, um, roll a d10. I'm gonna roll a d20, and we're gonna see what we get.
Roll a 10.
Yep,
It's a 6.
giant.
He speaks giant.
Interesting.
He or she speaks giant.
Uh-huh. So we can also do the personality traits, but I don't feel like adding the suggested personality traits. I want the character to kind of come to feel from what we say here.
Yeah.
Um, like the suggested traits are really nice, but we've already kind of got an idea about this character. Um,
Right. I think we
as
can
far as
base that on the stats and then the backstory.
yeah, yeah, I think we have a good place for it. We're not going to roll up the equipment per se. Some builds we might want to do that. In this case, I don't feel that there's a need to do a random like funny equipment on the character. I think we have enough as it is.
Hmm.
That this goblin who is just too pretty to be a goblin, um, is being ostracized and wanted to be a shaman. Spent its whole life wanting to be a shaman, but everybody made fun of it. Oh, look at those eyebrows. You don't have to pluck them at all. They're not fuzzy and straight out. Ooh, your nose is straight. It's not crooked. You know, constantly being teased about it. Um,
Why
they
are
laugh
your
at it.
lips so grotesquely full and sumptuous?
Yeah, why? And your muscles, the definition. Ugh, how could you do that? Like they've been punished for so long, like doing menial tasks and work that they've bulked up a little bit too. Like I don't think this goblin is as small as other goblins. Like normally they're about like half elf, like small child size, and this is
Hmm.
like just a little bit taller, but like you look at like a kid who had a growth spurt, early on in his class, like a
Hmm.
6-year-old or something like that, who like just jumped above his friends in like weight or in height. Like that's what this goblin is, right? Like he's not only grotesquely pretty, but like almost passably an ugly halfling. Um,
Maybe, and I mean, think about it this way too. Maybe that has led him down certain paths. Like he speaks giant.
yeah,
Maybe he was picked on to a point where he was like, "Fine, I'm smart enough. I'll just learn how to speak giant." Picking
yeah,
on me because of my height and my abnormal bad looks.
yeah, and he learns giant to try to like get the giants to help him out,
Hmm. Hmm.
and whatnot. Now here comes the big role, to finish off our character. Besides the name, which again we can name the character after we figure out what they present as, but it's also up for the audience if they want to adopt a character. We'll give it a name, a temporary
Hmm.
name, and
Hmm.
then when you adopt the character, you can change the name. That is perfectly okay. If you want to
Right.
adopt one of these characters and change the name, perfect. So I have a D6, and I think um, what we can do is one or two um, will be male but dresses and presents as female, like
Hmm.
either because they fit in better in one way or the other, or they feel more comfortable this way upon discovering other
And
races.
yeah, and interpret that how you might want
Yeah.
to. I
hmm
mean, think about it that way too. Like, what if, we talked about how this character has low charisma and is unattractive for a goblin. If this goblin ends up being male but presenting as female, perhaps he just has like really beautiful female features, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, and it's just
like
easier to get by that way.
yeah,
And then
right.
on the
Who knows?
opposite end, a 5 or a 6 would be that it's a female goblin who is androgynous enough, or because of masculinity and whatnot, gets by better as being male, either to get escape from whatever background you have for your goblins in your world or whatnot. And then 3 and 4, which should be the average, will be um, the dichotomy, either male or female presents as
Hmm.
that one,
Hmm.
and we'll just roll on odd even after
Okay.
that. So
Okay.
1, male presents themselves as female.
Hmm.
They identify better in the tall ones cultures and um, interacts better as a female, and they find more enjoyment being that. Maybe that's also another reason why they had to leave their tribe. You know,
It's possible.
it's
Yeah.
um, because of just the way that those cultures worked. That it didn't fit well. It wasn't comfortable. It wasn't the way they wanted. So our character has that wonderful ability there. Um, or I think this is a pretty good goblin, honestly, and a good first resident. I think this goblin probably came into this new area and has started to live here on the outskirts of another town.
Hmm.
Not too close, but close enough that you can walk there in like a half a day and come back without like having to camp out.
Right.
Um,
But um is she our mayor? Is she going to be the person that founds a city, or like maybe just the first person to start living in
just
this area?
let's
Do we
have her
know
be
yet?
like the first one to live in the area. As we
Okay.
meet more characters, they'll join in, they'll find this goblin, and things will go out. Maybe they don't have a Mary Six, or maybe they have like um, a community circle that they all share
Yeah.
responsibility.
Yeah.
We don't know yet. It's
Right.
growing, which is what's going to be great. Do we want to give our goblin a name, or
I
do we
think
just want
so.
to rent? Okay, that's a. I'm just gonna.
So sometimes I use random name generators
Yes.
And other times I already have a name
Hmm.
in mind, and sometimes I come up with it on the fly.
Yeah.
The name Rando
Hmm.
was part of that character's uh, like concept because it was for a one shot, and he was
Hmm.
like I was like, okay, I just need a paladin. Rando McElroy was the name of the paladin. Um,
Yeah.
you know that last name is from the McElroy brothers.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
so and then Therim Yalder was actually just randomly generated, and I just
Hmm.
clicked until I saw a name that I liked. Um,
Hmm.
so I mean, there's a number of ways we could approach that. Um, do
Yeah.
we want a name that is sort of sounds like a goblin name, or do we want just
I'm not sure
Sarah?
because
You know what I mean?
honestly, I was thinking Sophia. I was thinking along an S also. I was thinking
Okay,
Sophia. I
okay,
like I like
I like
Sophia.
Sophia. Yeah.
Like the goblin has forsaken its goblin name and
Hmm.
has chosen a better one that can be better in the common tongue
Hmm.
and works with that.
Yes, and it fits with the identity that we've created for this character as well.
Yeah, yeah,
Sophia. Maybe that's not her birth name, but that's the name that we're gonna
yeah. That's the
give
name
her. And
that.
if somebody ends up adopting this character, they can add more to that if they want.
Of course, that'd be great. Um, And actually, that is a great place to end this podcast. We've hit our mark, and it's been really great to come up with this character with you. It's been a lot of fun. Um, I hope Sophia can get more friends coming into the town. Maybe Sophia will actually find her place as like a shaman or as a medicine person here
Hmm.
in this lovely town, and hopefully somebody will hear this podcast and want to adopt her and bring her out onto adventures. And we
Yeah,
can only hope for the best for that. John, it's been amazing to have you, and I look forward to making more of these with you in the future. And actually, I have another friend who, if we want to stray into AD&D Second Edition kind of homebrew style, I have a friend who has
sure.
a huge chart that we can use later. But
That sounds good.
Um, for those listening at home, please like, subscribe, share if you're watching this on either YouTube or onto Facebook. And hit us up, leave comments, ask questions, give us some ideas, and we'll play off of it. And we look forward to seeing you on the next one.